very, very warm welcome everyone to a special Restless event. As you know, we've got Alex Connell, our roving chef, who's from the fantastic charity Vegetarians for Life. And this evening it's all about warming up for spring. So Alex has got 5 great recipes to share with you all. And as it's Shrove Tuesday, he's incorporated a lovely eggless pancake recipe as well. So you can all get flipping at the end of the event if you so wish. The links for all of the recipes are actually in the chat function. So at the bottom of your screen in the chat function, you'll see not only the Vegetarian for Life website, which is vegetarianforlife.org.uk, but also the 5 recipes that he's going to be demonstrating this evening. So it's really just time to sit back, relax, and let Alex do all the hard work. And over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Denise, and welcome. Thank you for coming back. If you've been with me before, I've done a couple of demonstrations, and if it's your first time, thank you for joining us. Now, this evening, I'm going to be cooking for about just under an hour, thereabouts, and I've got 5 great dishes for you. As Denise was saying, that the links are in the chat, so if you want to grab those, and you can keep them, there's no need to write stuff down. But you can also find them on our website, which is vegetarianforlife.org.uk, so you can find them there. So I'm going to show you how to make. All kind of like warming, wintry, springy sort of dishes, like kind of like moving towards spring. I think it is the sort of spring today. So I'm going to show you how to make a wonderful soup, which is watercress and potato soup. Really lovely, slightly spicy with the watercress, slightly peppery soup. And I'm going to make a couple of changes to the recipe, but I'll talk about that as we go along. I'm also going to make a bread as well. I'm going to show you how to make soda bread. Really easy to make. And if you've not made bread before, it's a great place to start. It's really quick. I'm also going to make a hot pot. I'm turning around. I've got all my trays. See, I've got all my trays behind me. I'm going to make a hot pot as well, all within the hour or thereabouts. So I'm going to have got my work cut out. And I'm also going to show you how to make a carrot cake, which I think is really lovely and comforting. You have it any time of year, I guess, but it does something about it. I really enjoy that sort of stodgy cake at this time of year. And I'm going to finish off by making some pancakes. Of course I am. I'd be remiss if I didn't. But I do want to make a start because, that's going to take quite a while to do that. Now, I've got my oven on already. Now, this recipe, the temperature of the oven should be around about gas mark 3 to 4, so relatively lower than the standard 180, which is gas mark 4, which is for most cakes and bakes, I guess. So I've got my ingredients here. So it's carrot cake. So of course I've got some carrot. I've got some brown sugar. You can use white sugar, but it just adds a little bit more flavour. Now, here's my first little change to the recipe. I've just reduced the amount of brown sugar. Let me see that. I've just reduced the amount of brown sugar I've got just a bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to supplement with some sultanas. When I was a kid, the recipe always has sultanas in it, so I'm going to put some in. But because I've got the sultanas, which are quite sweet, I don't need to put as much sugar in. Still lots of calories, of course. We're still getting plenty of calories, but we're also getting a little bit of fibre and vitamins from the sultanas. I've also got some walnuts. Now, I really do like walnuts in cakes. I'm not such a big fan of walnuts on their own, but I do like them in cakes. So I've got some chopped up there. I've also got some flour, I've got some plain flour, and I've got some wholemeal flour, just to kind of make it a little healthier, I guess. I've got some spices, I'll go through these in a second. I've got some bicarbonate and also some baking powder to get a real good raise. So without further ado, let's make a start. So it really is very, very easy. You can start with our sugar. Sugar into the bowl. Get rid of that, I don't need that one. And into that, I'm going to add my my oil. So this is ordinary vegetable oil, not olive oil. You could probably use olive oil, but it might sort of be a little peppery, depending on the brand. So we're going to press me, I would say, no, you go for a plain oil. Now, I'm not going to use an egg with this, but I am going to use this stuff here, which is kind of like an egg substitute. You can get it in most supermarkets or health food stores. It's called No Egg, imaginative, and it's kind of potato starch. It's sort of, it kind of helps to bond cakes and bread so it doesn't sink down. So I've got a few teaspoons of that, and all you do, it's dead easy, all you do is mix that with a little water. I was looking for my water. You just mix it with a little bit of water, around about a teaspoon per egg, until you get a sort of a mix like so. Super easy, and in it goes. And that just helps to stabilize the cake so it doesn't fall down. So just give that a bit of a mix, and in we go. You can actually use, sorry about the rattling, you can use banana as well. That works well. It gives a banana-y flavour, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just going to be a little bit banana-y. I've also got some carrots, as I mentioned, lots of lovely carrots. In we go with that. It's around about 300. When I was measuring it, I thought it's an awful lot of carrots. Anyway, so let's just give this a bit of a stir and make sure getting all mixed up. In we go with the sultanas. So that wasn't in the recipe, but it's my kind of little addition. And I've also got the chopped walnuts. In we go with that. Now I'm going to put the flour in towards the end, and also the raisin agents. I want to get this all mixed up. Now the spices I've got, you can put whatever you want in, but I would be generous with those spices. So I've got in here nutmeg, clove, cinnamon and ginger. If you've just got, if you've got mixed spices, a couple of teaspoons of mixed spices will be absolutely fine. If you want to swap it and put a little bit of allspice in there and some ginger and mix it around, whichever way you want to do it. But I would be, if you've not baked before, be more generous than you think. If you just think, I'm not sure, with all these other ingredients, you do need quite a bit. So kind of about 2 teaspoons. Well, let me say my hesitation would be not 2 teaspoons of cloves, though. It's a kind of 2 teaspoons of a mix of all different spices. Clove is one that can be a little bit strong. It kind of reminds me of the sort of oil of cloves when you had a toothache. Kind of it's been still sold, that stuff. But anyway, right, so we've got that. So in we go with the flour. So a little bit of wholemeal flour just to kind of make it a little healthier. You don't have to use wholemeal flour, but I'm just going to put some in. I've also got some plain flour. In we go with that. Give this a good mix. Not put my raisin agents in just yet. I just want to make sure that all this is mixed thoroughly before I put that in. We'll just take a moment or two just to bring this together. So in terms of a cake tin, really it's fairly flexible, but I tend to use quite a low one and have a sort of a lower cake rather than have it as a kind of a tall cake. You kind of get an easier bake, a more even bake. But of course, you can bake it as a loaf and it will work really well. I do want to make sure this thing is mixed because of all the carrots. It's quite a tricky job to make sure all the flour is incorporated. Now, it may seem that you've got far too much carrot in here, but as it bakes, the carrot is going to cook. And it's going to release some of the water. So it might look a bit kind of stodgy at this stage, but that's exactly what it should be like. There we go. Wonderful. So there we have something that looks a little bit like that. So we can then put in our baking powder. And I'm just going to make sure that there are no lumps and bumps in there because if you get a bit that's not been mixed in properly, it can be a bit bitter. And of course, it's just a little bit unpleasant. So let's just give this a good old mix. Now, the spoon I'm using is plastic and it's really old and it's slightly flexing in my hand. And I'm really conscious that this thing is just going to snap. So what I'm going to do, rather than have to abandon the cake with a piece of broken plastic in it, I'm just going to swap a spoon. It's a really old spoon, probably from the 1950s, that one, one of those sort of heirloom things that get passed That's down. But anyway, that's better. So you end up with something that looks a little bit like that. One more turn for good measure. And we are done. Lovely. Right, let's get rid of this.
Just to let everyone know that for those that have arrived a little bit later, that we do have all the recipes and the Vegetarian for Life website address and the chat facility at the bottom. And if anyone's got any questions at all, please put those questions into the chat facility at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be happy to answer them as it goes along or at the end, whichever you prefer. Thank you.
Thank you. So our mix has now gone in. I'm just going to spread that out a bit. So you can see how big, hopefully, you can see how big the container is. I just want to spread that out. Sorry about the noise from the paper. Now I am making this slightly thinner, only fractionally, than the recipe, just to speed the cooking process along a bit for the purpose of tonight. So normally my case would be just slightly smaller, and the cake will be just fractionally deeper, of course. But with this one, just because I want to speed things along, so I haven't got one Blue Peter style tucked away with a Marks and Spencer wrapper still on it. There we go. There we go. So that's the case that I would make normally if I was in a rush. So it's not, as you see, it's not that much smaller than that. Okay, right. Well, let's wish it luck, and this can go straight into the oven now. And that should take about 5 minutes to cook or thereabouts. So there we go. So that should be about, I don't know, 25 past, thereabouts. And I'm going to show you how to make a topping for that as well, but I need to let the whole thing cool before I pull it on, but I'll show you how to make it. It's really easy. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, speeding along, is the soda bread. Now, soda bread, let's bring my soda bread ingredients up. It couldn't be, whoops, bring the wrong ingredients tray up then. Soda bread couldn't be easier. Now, if you've not made bread before, this is a good place to start. So we've got some plain flour. Let's put that through there. And I've also got some strong bread flour. So the difference between this one and this one is that this one's got more gluten in it. So the bread flour will help to stick it all together. I just want to put it through the sieve just to take out any lumps and bumps. I've also got some bicarbonate soda, hence its name, soda bread. If you ever wondered, it's because soda. In we go with that. Push that through. Don't want any lumpy bits in there. So that should just give it its rise. Finish with that one. I've also got some herbs. And a little bit of salt. So in we go with that, with the herbs. In we go with the salt. I just kind of like bread with little bits of flavour. And we're almost done. Just sort of spread that on me. Okay, so the next thing to put in is some milk. Now, I'm actually making this one dairy free, so I've got soy milk in here. Let me get a spoon. I won't use the one that I used before. The carrot cake one. So I've actually got soy milk in here, but you can use oat milk, or you could just use milk if you wanted, either way. Let's start to bring this together. Now, the advantage of the soda bread over traditional bread, as in bread with a little bit of lemon in there as well. The advantage of it is it's so much faster, really is, because with traditional bread with yeast, obviously you've got to let it rise, but with this one, it rises as it bakes. You don't set it to one side for it to do it. You just put it straight onto the tray and let it rise like that. So it really is such a quick bread to make. So it should take about 35 minutes to cook. That's all. It really is the easiest one to do. You don't need to knead it as much as you do with standard bread. Really is quite a forgiving beast, shall we say. So let's just bring that together a little bit more. Tiny bit more milk. There we are. And we're pretty much done. How easy is that? Could not be much easier. So then what we do is we get, I'm going to give this a bit of a knead in a second, and we get a little bit of flour and dust it on our tray that we're going to bake that in. I've just put a little extra flour on here because when you get your hand in, having that little barrier of the flour on the top means that I have clean hands rather than having really sticky, messy hands. It just sort of helps to get it going. So I'm just turning this a few times, but you really don't need to work it as much as you would do with standard bread. It really is quite forgiving in that way. But it is rustic as well. It has a kind of rustic appearance to it. So it will look nice, hopefully, but that's the nature of this bread. And that's it. It's pretty easy, isn't it? So we can now bring this together, and we can put it onto our tray, which I've put a nice bit of flour on there so it doesn't stick. So there's our lovely dough. It's just starting to feel slightly elastic, which is where I want it to be. And then we just pop that on there like so. I need that. Let me move this out of the way. So the last thing to do is to find my knife, which is here, and just slash the top like so. And like so. So I'll lift this up so you can see what I've done. So I've slashed that. Can you see how we've kind of got sort of like four sections? And then just take a little bit more milk and just spread that on the top like so as a little glaze. And then with a little bit of the spare flour, just sprinkle it on the top like so. And you're done. How easy is that? So this is going to go into the oven now. So let's put it in, and I can chat a little bit more about it.
You made that look incredibly easy, Alex. I'm sure we'll all be.
Bear with.
I'm just saying you made it look incredibly easy. I'm sure we'll all be rooting through the cupboards to make sure we've got the right ingredients and baking that.
Sorry, I missed your question, Denise.
No, I was just saying you made it look incredibly easy. I think
it is. It's the easiest bread to make, as in a loaf. If you make a flat bread, which if we get an event in the future, I'll incorporate a flat bread as part of the recipes. It really is. That's one of the easiest ones as well. But to create a loaf, I would say this is the easiest one because there's no waiting around. You know, it's sort of a few ingredients. Bring it together, do that little swishy thing in the oven, and away it goes. Could not be easier. Could not be easier. Right, the next dish, we are moving along. We are clipping along.
A quick question, Alex. Quick question.
Yes.
Can both of these dishes, somebody's asked, be described as vegan? Can both of them be classed as vegan?
Yes.
All of the ones you're doing.
Well, the recipes that I'm making are all vegan, but if you were to buy it in a shop, don't assume that the ones in the shops are, because they won't necessarily be. So do Get the right pan. Yeah, if it's in a shop, it may be or it may not be. So, but these dishes I'm making are. Let me just put my onions in, and then I can. There we go. So this one's hot pot. So in we go with some onions and a little bit of oil. And then I can give you a better answer. Yeah, most things can be made vegan. You know, like most breads and cakes and stuff and pastries. You can even get whipped cream that you can whip. So you can make puff pastries and all sorts of lovely. You can make trifles with vegetarian jelly. There's most things you can make. Even meringues. You can make meringue using the water from a tin of chickpeas. I don't know whether I explained this last time, but apologies if I'm repeating myself. You have a tin of chickpeas and you've got the water that's in it. Drain the water off. Keep that. The chickpeas are for another day for a salad or a curry. Whip the water. Whip. Don't stop. Then add 100 grams of sugar, a little bit at a time. Whip. And then finally, a teaspoon of xanthan gum, which is a stabilizer. And as you're whipping, it will then just turn into a beautiful creamy meringue. And you bake it the same way that you would bake a meringue. Nice and slow for a dry one. And nice and fast if you just want that brown on the top and all sticky. When somebody told me you could do that, and I was like, what, with chickpea water? With the water from it? It's like, I thought they were pulling my leg, but they were genuine, really was genuine. Okay, right, so back to our hot pot. So this is kind of like that sort of wintry, cold spring day dishes that I really wanted to show you. So I've put my onions in here, and I just want to let them kind of soften and get a bit of colour to them. But I'm going to speed things along a little bit this evening. So in we go with some carrots. The great thing about a hot pot is you kind of add what you've got in. You really do. It's just, you know, it's a way of using up all sorts of things that you might have. Also a little bit of garlic in there. I'm a big fan of garlic, but if you're not, then obviously you don't put it in. It's as easy as that. I've also got here some corn pieces. Find them. There we go. Some corn pieces. Now, this is a great substitute if you want to try something that's a bit like meat, but it's not meat. It's not exactly like chicken, but it's kind of like, you get all sorts of different varieties these days. Cooking for someone that's vegetarian or vegan, and you've not cooked for them before, if you ask them if they like it, because some veggies and vegans, they don't like these meat kind of analogues. And others do. I'm a fan. I like them. So for me, it's going in. So in we go with that. Right. I've also got a tin of velouté beans. Now, in the recipe, it says flageolet. I couldn't find any, and I couldn't find any about 3 weeks ago either. So I don't know whether there's sorry about the noise. I don't know whether there's a pretty noisy pan today. I do apologise. Hopefully it'll go quiet in a moment. There we go. Put some peas in there as well. Let's make a little bit of space. There we go. So I don't know whether there's a bit of a shortage or they've moved them and stored them somewhere else. I don't know. But so I've got velouté beans, and any beans that are great in this. It adds a nice texture, and there's a lot of protein in pulses. Any pulse, including peas, quite cheap, really nutritious. Certainly worth putting those in. So there we're starting to develop. You can see this. I do apologise about the noise. This is the noisiest pan I've ever had. You can see it's lost a bit there. It really is lovely, hearty, wintry, spring food in that cold evening, and it really will take about half an hour to make from start to finish. So we've got that. I'm also going to put in some stock. Now it's a vegetable stock, of course. I'm glad I put that. It's just getting a little bit noisy. So all I'm going to do now is, it's nearly finished. I've got some mixed herbs to put in there. I can find my mixed herbs. I should put those in there. I don't know what I've done with them. No, there they are. This one's quite plain. It's not got ginger. It's not got too much spice in it. I am going to put a little bit of paprika in there. It's a little smoked paprika. I kind of like that sort of smoky flavour. So I'm going to put a little bit of that in there, but not too much. My secret ingredient, not secret, I'm telling you, Henderson's relish. I've mentioned this before. It's wonderful, kind of. It's a bit like Worcestershire sauce. You know, it's that sort of Lee and Perrinsy type thing, but it doesn't have fish in it. As the other brands do, so for me, I can enjoy it, but it is quite nice. And you can get this in Waitrose. If there's a Waitrose nearby, they do sell it there. Sometimes Sainsbury's, but it tends to be Waitrose. Now we've nearly done with this. It still needs to cook, it still needs to bubble away. But to thicken this up, I'm going to add a little bit of gravy powder. Now you may think this is a meat one, but it's not. Even though it kind of, the advertising would have you think that it is. It's actually vegan, and it always was. But do check if you get a different brand or a different colour, because they do meaty ones, that you are getting a veggie one. If you're veggie, obviously, if you're not, it won't matter. Now then, the smell from this is lovely. It really is a really lovely party dish. My girlfriend, I feel like I'm too old to say girlfriend. She's my girlfriend. Anyway, she went out earlier, and I said, oh, you know, don't forget I'm doing this, so be quiet when you come in. And she said, what am I making? I'm making hot pot. Oh, I like hot pot. Really kind of like, you know, dark evenings, the sort of thing you can make quite quickly, but it's so satisfying. It's so delicious. So this is just bubbling away in here. So I'm just going to sprinkle just a few granules of the gravy powder in here. So that's going to add a little extra flavour, but also it's just going to thicken the sauce up as well. So we end up with something, I don't know if you can see that, it's all kind of a bit steamy in here. You end up with something like that. Little bit of salt and pepper in, that's it, it's done. All I'm going to do now is just let this simmer away. So I've got my gas stove over here, so bear with me while I just, and I did just, got that, there we go. I did just put a little bit of extra water in there, just because I can't be watching it all the time, and it just gives me that little bit of freedom for that. Okay, so hot pot. It's going to obviously have potato topping, but I'm not going to come to that straight away, because but I want to encourage you and show you how to do it, and it's the easiest thing to do is a little bit of red cabbage. Now, obviously you can just buy the stuff and it's fine, but making your own could not be easier. It really is. You need 2 ingredients, essentially, vinegar and a cabbage, and that's it. You can get a bit fancy, but let me just chop a little bit of cabbage. I do apologise about the noise of the clunk as it goes down. I won't do too much, and I'm trying to do it quietly, but there we go.
Just a question, Alex.
Yes.
Rachel has asked, would you be able to use a slow cooker to cook the hot pot in? Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, pop it in a slow cooker. Now, the only thing about the slow cooker is, in there, with Quorn, what I found is you should put it in towards the end, let everything else cook, and then put the Quorn pieces in towards the end, so they're just sort of heated through. If you put the Quorn pieces in at the start, what can happen is they get very, very soft. You're cooking them for a couple of hours or so, 3 or 4 hours, and they just get really, texture seems to go sort of fall from them. So everything, yes, apart from the Quorn, and just add the Quorn towards the end, so it just needs to get heated up. But yeah, a slow cooker would be perfect for that.
Thank you.
Red cabbage, our red cabbage. Here it is. Now, in the old days, what I used to do was to put loads of salt on it. And I saw James Martin the other day on the telly putting lots of salt on cabbage and explaining why. He had some good reasons. But for this, what I used to do was to put salt on it, let it stand for a couple of hours or so, and that draws out the moisture. Rinse all the salt off and the water, pat it dry, and then put my vinegar mixture on there and let it marinate for overnight if you've got time, or at least a couple of hours. But you know, I tried it without doing that, and it was actually not too bad at all. It wasn't too bad at all. And the next day, anyway, I couldn't tell the difference between the two. So in terms of vinegar, so we've got the red cabbage here. You can just use the chip shop malt vinegar. It's pretty nice with that. Or just to increase the flavour, you could put in, have a look what you've got. We've got some red wine vinegar, which I've got here. I'm going to put some of that on. Just enough. I don't want to completely cover it because that would end up with a whole lot of vinegar wasted. Just going to put a little bit on there. And then just to sweeten this, I've just got the smallest amount of sugar. So you want about half a teaspoon of sugar for that amount. No more, it'll become sweet. And some pepper. So periodically this evening, I'm just going to agitate this to stir this. Now, if you put a lid on there and put it in the fridge, and every now and again give it a bit of a stir to make sure it's covered, it will last at least a week, absolutely probably longer. But after the first day, it really starts to get a little bit softer and delicious and beautiful. And that's it. So we're going to serve that with the hot pot. So let's just pop that to one side, and I'll try and remember this evening to give it a bit of a stir from time to time. Okay, so back to our hot pot. It needs potatoes on the top, of course it does. Now, what you can do is there we go, me concentrating there. What you can do, of course, is slice your potatoes and put them on raw and then put them in the oven and let it bake. That would be the more traditional way of doing it. However, if you're in a rush or you just want to speed things along, I do apologise about this clunking. Let's get this done quickly. What you can do is just simply fry the potatoes. As long as you do it carefully, you'll get a nice bit of colour on them. And then all you do then is assemble these on the top of your cooked filling, put it into a casserole dish or an individual serving dish. You can assemble it that way. You can finish it under the grill. If you can parboil the potatoes and then put them on the top and then just finish them up under the grill. I've done that before. That works really well. But if you were to, excuse me, if you were to put the raw potato on the top, it will take quite a while for the thing to cook in the oven. So that's the reason that I'm doing it this way. It's not because it has a better flavour. It does have a very good flavour. It's not to do with that though. It's just to speed things along. And we go with a little bit more oil on there. So I lift this up and you can see, so I've got these nice chunky bits, and these are going to take about 10 minutes to cook until they're nice and crispy on the outside and still a little bit soft in the middle. So 5 minutes either side, or kind of probably a few more minutes on this side, and when you turn them over, about 3 minutes. So kind of like 7 and 3, thereabouts. And then kind of assemble it together, and the job is done. How easy is that? Right, okay, let me put this to one side on my gas hob over there. Just want to show you this. This is our hot pot. You can see that. You see how lovely, and to move out. I don't know, can you see that? Can I bring this a bit closer? It's very steamy, and you see that? Oh, it's a bit dark in there, but it's got, it's It's got that lovely rich colour from the gravy. It's just like the steamy and warm, chunky bits of veg in there. The peas just add that extra bit of colour, but also sweetness. Delicious, really lovely. Really is one of my favourite dishes. And served with the cabbage, the pickled cabbage, with potatoes on the top, it's difficult to beat. It's really lovely, hearty, delicious food. And you can chop and change and put almost anything into it that you've got in your cupboard. So it's a great way of using what you've got up. Okay, let's put that back on my cooker over there and let that carry on doing its thing. Okay, so the next dish I'd like to show you is a very lovely soup. Now this soup on your recipes is, got the right pan. There we go. Switch it on. There we go. A bit of oil and we can start cooking. In we go with the onion. I was chatting to a group in North Manchester, about Salford, should I say, North Manchester. Salford isn't. Salford and Manchester, there's a thing. Anyway, and I was saying, you know, like, cook your onions for longer. I used to work as the principal tutor at the cookery school in Altrincham, and we had guest chefs, and we had two women who were from India originally, and they were saying to get the best flavour you can out of all your savoury dishes is to cook the onion a little bit longer, and I've really taken that on board, and I think it does make such a difference. I am going to speed these things on a little bit tonight, but if I had a bit more time, I would cook the onions for about 10 minutes. Really relax with it. I'm going to speed things along tonight. But anyway, so this is our soup. So this is the potato and watercress soup. So my onions are cooking, and for that I've added some celery. Now, I do think that celery is one of those sort of like frozen peas. It's sort of like a little underrated veg. It kind of does its thing, but it's just had a lovely background flavour. It just kind of, you know, it's there, but it's not there. And the celery is in most stock cubes. It's kind of that lovely background flavour. I don't think it gets the kind of praise that it should do, in my opinion anyway. Okay, so we've got that, and the onion is now starting to get a bit of colour on it. There's something about the smell of onions cooking with celery. It's wonderful. It really is lovely. And into that, I'm going to add, because it's St. Patrick's Day, so St. David's Day. Oops, St. David's Day. I have some leek, which I happen to have in the cupboard fridge, so I'm going to put some of that in. I've also got a little bit of carrot in there, which isn't in the recipe, but it really works well. The thing about a soup is you can just about add almost anything that you fancy in there, and it's going to turn out, it's going to be lovely. As long as you kind of want it to, if you want to represent the recipe as it is, the dish as it is, you've got to put most of the ingredients in. But you don't need to put exactly everything in there. You can always add. And the thing about a soup or a curry or a chili or a hot pot or a bolognese, any of these things, you can use up almost anything and put it into it. So let's just give this a bit of a stir. And this soup will be ready in about 20 minutes. It really is a fast thing. Okay then. I've also got some potato, because it is potato and watercress soup. I do have to put that in. I've also got some sweet potatoes, because I've had some in. I like sweet potatoes. Adds a little bit of sweetness to it. Now then, here's my real advice or tip, if you like. Lentils. I'm vegetarian. Let's put them in while I'm chatting. A little bit of stock as well. There we go. I guess it's a bit of a cliche. I'm vegetarian that I eat lentils, and vegetarians eat lentils. I don't know whether there was a TV show, a comedy show years ago called The Young Ones, and there was a character on there called Neil, and I think he was always eating lentils or chickpeas, and it maybe became a bit of a stereotype. But yes, I am vegetarian, and yes, I do eat lentils from time to time. I really do enjoy them, and they're a great base to so many dishes. You know, curries and stews, and all sorts, and dals, of course. Loads of Indian, Pakistani cuisine using pulses as well. There's a whole range of them, not just the red split ones. The red split ones do work a treat in this. So all I'm going to do is add some stock, which is obviously the vegetarian stock, vegetable stock. I'm going to put a little bit more water in there, actually. We'll let that do its thing. Now, we're going to put some mixed herbs in now. I don't want this to be too kind of, you know, spicy, but I'm going to put the watercress in towards the end. I don't need to put this in now. If I put it in now, what can happen is that as it cooks, the colour changes and it doesn't look that attractive. I'm going to put this in towards the end. So remind me if I don't put it in. I've also got some peas as well, which I'm going to put in towards the end. Put them in too early, then they can sort of lose their colour a bit. So if you want that sort of nice, vibrant green colour, chuck them in towards the end. They don't need that long to cook, and the job is done with that. I'm also going to put in some cream cheese. Now, if you want to put standard cream cheese in, it will work very well. But if you want to do a vegan version, Philadelphia have got this new. Sound like an advert, doesn't it? Doesn't it? They've got a plant-based one, which I'm going to put a dollop in there. It's pretty good. It's all right. Not bad. So I'm going to put that in. So there we have our soup. All I need to do is to. I'm going to get my cooker changed because every time I lift it up to show you, it beeps to tell me I've lifted it up to show you. Anyway. There we are, switched it off. So we've got this lovely, lovely soup. So that's a great base for it. So have a look in your cupboard, have a look in your fridge to see what you've got. We're going to put this onto the gas cooker so it can just do its own thing over there. And I can move this out of the way. Now, it's Shrove Tuesday today, pancake day. So let me show you how to make an eggless pancake. So easy, it really is. So easy. But this one has got two sorts of flour. So I've got plain flour here, and I've also got gram flour here. Now, gram flour is chickpeas, ground chickpeas. And the advantage about using gram flour is that it adds quite a bit of extra protein into the pancake. Now, if you want to make this as a sweet one, you can, but I would recommend just to add a little bit of sugar to the mix. Generally, you wouldn't need to if you're just doing an egg one, but for this one, I just would add a little bit in. The reason for that is that the gram flour, and the reason I'm just giving it a bit of a sort of tickle is to make sure there are no lumps in there. It should be all right, is that the gram flour can be a little bit bitter. So by doing that, it just sort of counteracts that. Okay, right, so we've got that. So let's add some liquid to that. So that's just some, you can put milk. I've just got some soy milk, a little bit more. Just give this a bit of a stir. I've got one eye over here. Let me have a quick peek. Yeah, everything's doing fine. I'll bring some. It's nicer now. It's a bit quieter. But let's just give this a bit more of a stir. Now, ideally, what I'd want to do is to let this stand for 20 minutes or so, and that just helps to make sure there are no little dry lumps of flour, and it will thicken up a little bit as it properly hydrates. So you may need to add a little bit more liquid afterwards. a little splash in now. I'm also going to put in just a little bit of oil, just a tiny bit of vegetable oil, and that sugar as well. Just a little sprinkle of sugar at this point. So I'm going to finish our dem by making a pancake, but I do want to let this sit for a few minutes or so before I do that. So there we have our lovely batter. Lovely batter mix. I might need to put a little bit more milk in there, but I'm not going to adjust it yet. I'll just let that sit and do its own thing. Right then, I'll need that and that for my serving. Lovely. And some oil for frying it. Let's move this out of the way. Okay, so let's come back and look at our potatoes. Let's switch this back on. So if I just turn one or two over, it's just starting, I don't think you can see it, it's just starting to get a little bit of colour. Not too much, so it still needs plenty more cooking. But that's a better one. That's just got that bit of colour on that. It's very hot, I can't really touch that too much. But these will be cooked in about 5 minutes or so. Our lovely base is just bubbling away over there, doing its thing. And part of me is thinking about the bread in the oven. It should be getting there. There we go. Now this will freeze, well, all the dishes will freeze, even the cake will freeze. I'm going to show you to make a little frosting for the cake, but if you're going to freeze it, I wouldn't freeze it with the frosting on, I'll just freeze it as a basic cake. So you end up with something that looks a little bit like that. So let's have a look at our frosting for our cake. So we're going to use that Philadelphia plant again, and just mix that with some icing sugar. It is very, very easy. All we do is mix that with some icing sugar to make a little sort of frosting to go on the top. Here we go with that. Always seems indulgent to use a whole packet. A little bit of vanilla. Get the lid off. There we go. Splash of vanilla in there. Just a couple of drips in there. I'll do. And then we can add some zest of an orange. And this just adds a little bit of interest to it. You don't need to put a lot in. It just adds that extra bit of something to it.
A quick question. So Rachel has asked about the soda bread. How long would that keep for typically?
Good question. Good question. The soda bread doesn't keep as well as other breads in my experience. It tends to, like the next day, if you toast it, that's fine. But as a bread, it goes a bit stale quickly. You know, if you buy a French stick and it's like lovely, and the next day you can play baseball with it, it sort of does that. So that's the disadvantage of it. It might be just a recipe I've always made and other breads work well, but you can always freshen it up by putting it into the oven and just warming it. But if you're going to make toast, which particularly suits well, then that's you can do that. But yeah. It's a make it in the morning and eat it that day.
Can you freeze it? Would it freeze well?
Yes, you can freeze it. Yeah, you can freeze it, and that's fine. And then what I do then is I would refresh it in the oven, and that would just kind of make it more like a fresh loaf once it's thawed properly.
Great, thank you.
And there's our mix. How easy was that? Just while we were chatting, it's just done. That's it. So it's just icing sugar, the zest of the orange, and the cream cheese, and also a little bit of vanilla, and that will go on top of our cake. So let's have a look at our cake. I wonder whether it's done. Fingers crossed. No, not quite. It's going to take another 5 minutes or so, but I will show you anyway. Okay, so let's have a look at this. We start to assemble our lovely hot pot, so you can sort of see what it's going to look like. So all we do is bit of a cheat, I guess. Pop this into your traditional hot pot container, and all this is pretty much cooked now. May want to cook it for a few minutes, but it's pretty much done. So gorgeous and wholesome and just kind of, you know, tasty, just tasty. Let me give my pickled cabbage a bit of an agitation. That will do. And then what we do then is just take our cooked potato and just put it on the top like so. You can see that this is such a much quicker way of creating a dish that if you were to put the slices of potato on raw, would take an hour or so, or even a couple of hours in the oven to cook through properly. There we have our very fast and easy. There we go. One more. Hot pot. How's that? That look like the, does that look like the recipe on the you see that? I'm really wearing my computer's just in front of me. One of these days I'm going to tip that and it will end up all over the keyboard. Well, that's, I mean, how easy is that? And that's within, you know, just under an hour. And I've been making the other stuff as well. Now, you can pop this into the oven and let that carry on cooking, but it's perfectly good as it is. But I'm just going to do that because I want to bring out the bread. And while it's in the oven, it will just keep it nice and warm. I can show you a bit of a juggling act. There we have our soda bread. Yeah, so we started off with that sort of mix of flour and milk and whatnot. We've now got delicious loaf of bread. Now you'll know when it's done because when you knock the back, it has a hollow sound, and you know that that's done. The smell from this really is intoxicating. So let me grab my my knife and take a nice chunk of that. Look at that, hey? Wonderful, lovely stuff. So bring our soup back, and that's been boiling hectically. That's a word. And we can add the remaining ingredients, which of course were the peas and also the watercress. So it really doesn't take long at all from here. So in we go with that, and then I'm going to make a little bit of noise again, so I do apologise. Little stick blender, very handy gadget. And just blend this until you end up with a nice soup. How easy is that? When it comes to serving, let's grab my plate up. We have a nice chunk of bread on the side, up there, and let's make a bit of space. We can serve that with our homemade soup, which had those extra ingredients in of the leeks and carrots and sweet potatoes as well. I think it really does worth having a go at that. And then if you want to, you can just put a little swirl of cream in there, which I'm going to just do. I know time's just flipping on for us, and also just a little bit of mint. So I'm playing around with recipes. If you just put the tiniest bit of mint on the top, like so, you get the aroma of it and just a little bit of a hint. So there we have, also that mint is just makes such a difference. So there we have our first course for a hearty winter's night, spring night. The pea soup, pea and watercress and potato soup with some peas in there and a little bit of mint served with the soda bread. So we've got that. We're also going to have some hot pot. So let's bring our hot pot out.
Was that a fresh mint that you used, Alex, on top?
Again.
Was that a fresh mint that you used on top?
That was fresh mint on there, yeah.
Looks gorgeous. Making us all very hungry.
So for our hot pot, let's grab a little spoon. And we've got our little. Now, what would be lovely if you were here with me, and we can all enjoy some of this very tasty, healthy, hearty, warming up for spring dishes. So how's that look, eh? You know, if you're in a little bistro, you know, you get something like that, and, you know, you go for a walk on the beach, absolutely lovely. And then just, I guess I don't know, it's something I had as a kid, a little bit of pickled cabbage on the side, just kind of does it. Again, the pickled cabbage will get nicer as it stands, you know, if you let it stand. So there we have our main course, the hot pot with the pickled cabbage. How lovely is that? That's not bad. It's chilly outside.
Amazing. That's amazing. Gorgeous.
For pudding, where's my gloves? Move this out of the way. We're going to have some pancakes. So our pancake mix should be nearly there. So let's get that on. Now the trick with a pancake is to assume that the first pancake won't work. It never does. And the reason for that is the pan needs to properly warm up. So let's bring our batter mix back. There we are. It has thickened up a little bit, but let's put a splash of milk in there just to let that down. And we can just mix this up. I'm only going to do one pancake tonight. I will use all the mix up. I'll just fry one for you tonight. Always remember, this was a real tradition in our household at home as a child, you know, making pancakes and bragging how many pancakes you'd had the night before, and there's always some kid who would, whatever you would say, they would have had more. And, you know, the naivety of me was like, oh, they did have more. They didn't. Of course they didn't. They probably only had two, the same as everybody else. So the trick is just to let this get quite hot, and you should see a little shimmer, a little bit of smoke before you put the batter in. But once it's doing that, it's nice and hot. Then you can put your batter mix in. I'm just going to do sort of a reasonably small one. Now with this mix, because it's not got egg in it, the egg would help to hold it together. This will hold together, but just let it cook properly before you turn it over. So let's hope that is going to work. But this should take a couple of minutes on either side. So let's have a look at our little. And there we have our lovely carrot cake. Now it does need a little bit longer. I can tell that it does just by touching it. I've got 2 things in the oven, so it's kind of just, you need to extend the baking time. Now for the topping for that, let this cool completely before you put the top on. If you put it on while it's even slightly warm, it'll just melt and slide off. So you need to be patient and let this cool completely before you put the topping on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this thoroughly cool. I'm going to chop it in half. Half's going to go in the freezer without the topping on, and the other half will get that mixture on, and I'm going to enjoy that over the next couple of days. But it really is worth having a go at this recipe. It really is quite a lovely recipe, and if you take the sugar down a little bit and increase with the sultanas, you'll get plenty of sweetness. For that, there we have our little carrot cake. In we go with that. So let's have a look at it. Now, you're wanting me to throw this in the air. I know you are, and you're going to be disappointed if I don't. But I'm afraid that's where we're going to end, because if I throw it in the air, it'll end up on the floor. So I'm not going to do that. So the other thing is about these pancakes are, because they've not got egg in it, it will hold together really well, but it doesn't quite have that same. So you do need to be a little bit cautious with tossing this, particularly with the first one. Let's just whip this one over. And let that carry on cooking. So, Denise, we're kind of getting towards the end of our evening. Do we have any questions from anyone watching tonight?
Let's just have a little look. Yeah, Rachel just says, really been good, great fun, and I've learned a lot. So, very impressed with the time management skills, says Barbara.
Oh, you're very generous. You tell my manager that. Time management, impressed with time management. I'll quote you next time I'm pulled up for something being delayed. You've not forgotten about that blog, have you? Oh, I was supposed to write that, was I? Okay. Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you for that. But other stuff goes, I don't know, where it goes all over the place.
I was going to say, great multitasking for a man. Shouldn't really say that, but very impressive.
Well, very impressive. Maybe. But do try these recipes. I really, so let me pull some of these recipes, some of these dishes up so you can see them. It's a bit easier for me to kind of do that encouraging bit. A bigger table, couldn't I? If you were going to make one dish. Now, the carrot cake is just still in the oven. It does need a little extra baking, so we'll kind of pretend that the carrot cake is in. If you were going to just make one of these, it's difficult to choose, but the soup is absolutely lovely and warming and comforting. It really doesn't take long to make. I would go for that. And then I would change my mind and say, no, you've got to go for the hot pots. Get the flavouring right so it's nice and subtle, and you've got the contrast with the pickled cabbage. So go for that one. Pancakes are nice too. Stroke Tuesday today, so maybe you can have a go at that. If you've not already had something, not fed up with pancakes, maybe that. The carrot cake, I'm going to let that carry on cooking for another 10 minutes or so we won't see that kind of topped. It will need to cool anyway. It's very nice too. But if I was pressed, I'm going to say the hot pot with the pickled cabbage. Okay, if you only do one, hot pot with pickled cabbage, that's the one to go for. Really is a lovely, lovely dish. Do we have any more questions, Denise?
No more questions, just really positive feedback from everybody, and you know, really great as well that you've actually done 6 recipes in the end, so that bonus pickled red cabbage recipe in there as well. So just really remains for us to say thank you so much for your time, really appreciate it. Thanks to all the members that have tuned in and watched the demo, and just a reminder, those recipes are on the live chat, but what we also do, which we perhaps haven't done before, is we have recorded the video, and you will find it on the community section of our website in the next few days. So if you want to recap, or if you want to share it with friends and family, then please do so. And now you're making us feel really jealous by eating what you've made.
Well, I want to, because I don't want to make you feel jealous, but it's such a lovely dish. And it's ready now. It's done. So within, you know, I know I chatting and we started at whatever time. I don't even know whether I began with this dish to begin with, but it really doesn't take that long to make. And it's so, for me anyway, it's so comforting. It's not spicy. It's just got a few herbs in there. It's kind of real old school stuff, you know. It's lovely. Have a go at it. Everyone have a go at this one. It really is lovely.
That's great. Thanks again, Alex, and thanks to everybody. Have a great evening, and do try those recipes out. They look amazing.
Thank you for watching. Take care.
Thanks. Bye now. Bye bye.